Hey guys, so it is time for another Letterboxd recap. I always forget to link my Letterboxd in these videos, so you can't follow me. I think my username is just Sarah Hawkinson, but I'll link my Letterboxd account finally down below, and I'll try to maintain that, at least in these videos. I need to just like permanently put it in my description box, because if you do follow me on there, you'll get a sneak peek into what I'm watching and how I'm rating things, because I pretty much rate everything on there as I watch them. So if you're ever curious, follow me over on Letterboxd. Anyway, we're gonna do a what I watched in January. Now, January is when I had my surgery for my dental implants, so I didn't watch a ton of stuff. You'd think that I would, but for some reason in recovery, I just really wanted to watch like comfort movies, and that pretty much means all rewatches. So I didn't really watch tons of new stuff in January. I also caught up on like all the reality TV that I was behind on, you know, Below Deck, Joe Millionaire, The Bachelor, Vanderpump. There's so many things though that I did watch this month that I really am excited to talk about. So this might be on the shorter side for these kind of videos, but please stick around for these. I mean, I'll have timestamps for the exciting ones that I'm going to talk about in this video, so you can see them in advance and see if you want to stick around, but please do, because there's some really good stuff that I watched in January. First up, I rewatched Devil from 2010. This is an M. Night Shyamalan movie, and it's not my favorite one. I think this one and The Visit are two of his worst like thriller or like horror movies that he's done. I'm just not a huge fan of them. I bought Devil on DVD because I don't know why, but sometimes I get a inkling to rewatch it. I'm starting to get that way with The Visit, which is a little horrifying to me because I'm not a fan of that movie. Anyway, Devil, it's fine. You know, it has a M. Night Shyamalan twist. I just don't think it's his best movie, but I rewatched that. Then I rewatched Snowpiercer because we were at the very beginning of the year, and I think Snowpiercer is the best New Year's movie. There aren't many of those, but Snowpiercer is definitely my favorite one to watch at the very beginning of the year or around New Year's. Then I watched Identity from 2003. So during a storm, 10 people find refuge in an isolated motel when the travelers realize that they're being picked off one by one, and limo driver played by John Cusack is determined to survive and reveal the identity of the killer. What to say about this one without giving anything away? So if you know me, this might be a surprise that I enjoy this movie. It's just, I think the era that it's in, I don't know. I own it on DVD, and it's a good rewatch. I really like this movie. However, I give it a 3 out of 5 because of certain elements in it. I'd still recommend Identity. I still rewatch it. You know, I obviously own it. I enjoy it, but there's like one major glaring issue that I have with it that I can't get into because it's a huge spoiler for the movie. If you've seen it, you might know what the issue is with it, but this almost feels like an M. Night Shyamalan movie. This feels exactly like something M. Night would do. Now, everyone is going to like Identity and where the story goes because it's very interesting. Has it been done before? Yeah. Maybe not in this way, but there's still some like big like twists and turns in this movie. It's a great psychological thriller. And several endings were actually filmed for the purpose of this movie to kind of keep the ending, the real ending, under wraps. So I don't know. I think it's a little bit predictable, but I like the mystery of it all. And I think they do really well in like creating the tension and everything throughout. And it's John Cusack. I love John Cusack. Next, I watched Monster, also from 2003, and this is a rough watch. This is a rewatch for me. I'm not sure why. I think I was scrolling Netflix and it just sounded good at the time because I love Charlize Theron in this role. I think she's incredible, and I love Christina Ricci anyway, so I don't know. I just threw it on. Definitely skipped through some parts. If you know, you know. But this movie's iconic and great. Yeah. Then I watched the documentary called The Inventor, Out for Blood in Silicon Valley, about Elizabeth Holmes. This is kind of a recent one, so, you know, talks more about the overall picture of her history. I don't know. She's bizarre. She's a conundrum to me. Obviously, if you've been around, I think in 2015, 2016 is when it really was like a thing. But this documentary is really good in delving into her entire backstory. If you don't know about it, just watch this documentary. It's a great overall story of what happened with her, and it was highly entertaining. These are some of my favorite kinds of documentaries, when it's following a strange person. It's nothing like gratuitous or graphic. I'm kind of leaning away from a lot of true crime. I don't really watch a lot of true crime documentaries anymore. It just puts me in a weird headspace, and I'm just very sensitive to that kind of stuff, like real horror, and it's just not really my thing anymore. If you have any more recommendations for this kind of thing, I have seen The Founder, so I get recommended that sometimes, but if you have any more that are like this, please let me know. Then Ryan and I kind of did a Robin Williams marathon after my surgery. It was just very comforting. He is my ultimate comfort actor, along with Matt Damon. So obviously I had to watch some Robin Williams this month, and I watched Jumanji first. Iconic classic. And then I watched Scream 2, of course. I did a whole marathon right before I saw the new Scream movie, so if you want to know my thoughts on that and the entire Scream franchise, check out this video up here. The next Robin Williams movie I watched this month was Hook. That's actually a first watch for me. We bought it on DVD a while ago and decided to watch it. It's so good. I really was a huge fan of this movie. Scream 3, same thing. Marathon, watch the video. Then I decided to check out The Unforgivable on Netflix. Ruth, played by Sandra Bullock, is released from prison after a violent crime and attempts to re-enter a world that refuses to forgive her for her past. This is more of a drama thriller movie. I think it's described as drama thriller, but it's very, very light on the thriller elements, I would say. This is almost like a true drama film, but I really wanted to talk about it because it's one of my favorite movies that I ended up watching this month. It's kind of more of a slower telling of this story that seems pretty straightforward. Like, I think you kind of think of what is going to happen next, and like, you know, the whole story right off the bat, but it still manages to keep your interest throughout and still surprise you in ways, even though it's like kind of a slower burn. Oh my god, there's someone walking their dog right by me. I did really enjoy Sandra's performance in the role, although it's not my favorite by any means. I'm not sure if she's 100% believable in a role like this, but I liked it. The role was actually originally written for Angelina Jolie back in 2010, and they went through a bunch of writers for this movie, and she never signed on to the project, so they decided to revisit it later in 2019 when it finally went back into production. It is new, so if you haven't watched it yet or decided not to check it out, I do highly recommend it if you're interested in like a slower story of this woman. It's very good. Okay, next thing I'm so excited to talk about because it is hands down my new favorite documentary of all time, and that is Woodstock 99, Peace, Love, and Rage. Now, this was airing on HBO Max. It's new. In July of 1999, a music festival spanning 3 hot days claims to promote the same counterculture idealism of the original Woodstock Festival of '69. However, things turned to riots, looting, and sexual assaults pretty quickly. This documentary was so fascinating to me. I could not keep my eyes off the screen. Like, everything about it speaks to me. Oh my gosh, it is so good. There's a lot of commentary about the music culture at the time, including my favorite band, Korn. They interviewed Jonathan Davis, which you can see my Korn sticker right here. That was really interesting. I'm actually seeing Korn in like 5 days, and I'm so excited. Korn and System of a Down. That just added another layer of it for me because I love, obviously, Jonathan Davis and anything Korn. So I liked seeing his interview, and, you know, they did perform at Woodstock 99. One thing that was, I think, really interesting to me particularly is I love nu metal, and even still to this day, I still listen to it, of course, and I don't fit the normal stereotypical image of someone who listens to nu metal. Not that anyone needs to, but watching it from a perspective of comparing myself almost to these like concert goers and like, how could they act like that? It was just bizarre. It was so interesting. They do well with trigger warnings going in. Like I mentioned, there are descriptions of assaults and things that happened at this festival, and it turns barbaric. Like, this should be studied, honestly. It turns into Lord of the Flies. It is just nuts, yet so captivating to watch in documentary form. It was so interesting to me. Obviously, it makes you very uncomfortable at times, but definitely watch it if you're familiar with the nu metal scene or, you know, late 90s, anything like that. It was just incredible. Definitely my favorite thing that I watched in January, and favorite documentary ever. Okay, maybe this next thing is actually my favorite thing that I watched in January. I just watched some really really good stuff in January. And the next thing that I watched was The House. This is a British stop-motion anthology film telling 3 different stories surrounding the same house taking place at different times. This movie is incredible. I think it was marketed as like a short series, but it's actually all in one movie, and the horror elements actually did get to me a little bit, especially in the first story. I think the first story is the strongest. It's my favorite, with the family that inherits this house or is gifted this house in exchange for their old property. Obviously it's the house, so there's weird stuff going on. I loved the first story. It almost reminded me of like Layers of Fear, the video game, because the house was changing and they would get lost. It was so creepy and so beautiful. That one's definitely the most unsettling of all of them, but the other 2 stories had really amazing stories, and I love the characters, and I love seeing the progression of the house throughout time. It was just so well done, so fascinating, so entertaining. So if you have not yet seen The House, you have to watch it. It is so good. Just do be ready for like really bizarre, weird scenes, imagery, also maybe some musical numbers in there. It's bizarre. It's the weirdest like stop motion thing I've ever seen. Then I watched Scream 4, and then I watched Scream. Again, go check out my video. Then I watched The Stepford Wives. So this is one that Ryan actually wanted to show me because he knew that I would love it, and I do. And it's funny because I get asked a lot, what is one movie that if you could turn into a horror movie, what would it be? And usually I would think of like the Hunger Games, right? Because I think Hunger Games would be so good as a horror movie. Arguably, there are some horror elements in the Hunger Games, especially in the books, but The Stepford Wives is now my new favorite answer for that, because this movie, if it was done in a different tone, if it was more like a thriller movie, this could have been very horrific. But I loved it. It was a first watch for me. I think I had seen parts of it, but no, it's so good. I did like the goofy elements and the lightheartedness, but I think had it been done like a horror movie, it would have been 10 times better. Okay, next I watched a movie that I have been requested a lot to watch, and I'm kind of mad about it, honestly. This is a weird movie for me. It's Be My Cat, a film for Anne. Okay, this is a found footage psychological horror movie about a Romanian director obsessed with Anne Hathaway and goes to shocking extremes to convince Anne to star in his upcoming movie. I didn't really know how to rate this movie because it's very effective, but I liked that it could really bother me, but I also hated this movie at the same time. I hated the fact it bothered me so much. Like, it went past entertainment and into the land of really uncomfortable, and like not a huge fan of that. For being such a it basically was no budget. I think it was made with less than $10,000, and it being a found footage, usually that would be my jam, and it was done so well that it really felt realistic. Like, I believed this director. In fact, I had it on when my partner was in the room and he thought it was real up until a certain point, and I had to be like, no, it's fake. About 30 minutes in, I just threw it on one evening just to watch part of it. I don't know. I just wanted to see what the tone was, what it was about. People had been recommending it to me for years, so I'm like, sure, I didn't know what else to watch, but then I had to go to bed, so about 30 minutes in is when I stopped, and I did not want to go to sleep. Like, it made me so uncomfortable. I felt very weird, and not in a good way, and maybe that's something that you want in these kind of movies. You probably know by now, if you've been a viewer for a while, that that's not my favorite place to be in when it comes to entertainment. I'd rather be entertained. I'm okay feeling uncomfortable in a certain way, but not in this way, you know? I did finish it the next day during the day because of how it made me feel. It's just not a nighttime movie for me. That being said, it is a really effective movie. So it's not for me, but it's definitely going to be for some of you. If you like that kind of feeling of watching a movie where you go past the entertainment and you just start to feel really weird and uncomfortable, this is a good one for you. Other movies that have done that for me, Mother and Climax. So if that's like a thing that you like to push yourself through, go watch Be My Cat. I think part of it is, as a woman, I felt very uncomfortable watching this. You know, it doesn't get graphic or gratuitous, you know, it's not anything that needs trigger warnings, but it is a strange experience to watch as a woman. There's a lot of implied violence. It does feel real, but there is that separation that you don't actually see a whole lot, which is nice. I did give it 3 out of 5 stars because of its effectiveness. It's definitely not a rewatch for me. That's a one and done. I had that experience. Now I'm gonna move on from Be My Cat. Okay, then I watched Good Will Hunting, the last Robin Williams movie I watched this month. I think in February I'm gonna watch Mrs. Doubtfire as well. Just love a good Robin Williams movie, you know what I mean? Good Will Hunting was actually my first viewing through. I really, really loved it because obviously it has my 2 favorite comfort actors working together in Matt Damon and Robin Williams. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is a recent release that came out on HBO Max, and that is called The Fallout. This follows 2 girls after they survive a shooting at their high school and highlights their healing process and ways that they cope. I liked this more than I thought I would. Based on the trailer, I saw like brief trailers of it because they were really pushing all the marketing for this. It seemed like the event took place really early on in the movie and the rest of it kind of just followed them after the tragedy. But I actually really appreciated the fact that they don't focus so much on the shooting. I feel like it really could have been more gratuitous and graphic and exploitative of school shootings, and it never crossed that line and it never pushed it too far, which I appreciated so much because I didn't want to watch a super traumatic film. I think they dealt with it in a really good way, and it did make me cry. I mean, the beginning scene, the opening scene is highly intense. Like, it's very, very intense, don't get me wrong, but they don't actually like show anything too much, which is very comforting. This movie is just very, very impactful, as you can imagine. It's very meaningful, and I mean, the ending, dear God, it's so haunting. This does star Jenna Ortega, who we know and love from the new Scream movie, who played Tara. She was by far my favorite character in the new Scream movie, and I think she's becoming one of my new favorite up-and-coming actors as well, because she just is so incredible at tapping into her emotions that it feels real. These feel like her emotions, and she just does such a good job in roles like these. So if you're already a fan of her, definitely check out The Fallout. It doesn't get too much. It's just the perfect amount, and I loved the story of this movie. It was very impactful. It was so good. So there you have everything that I watched in the month of January, plus a ton of reality TV shows, and I just restarted my Desperate Housewives marathon for the 6th time. So yeah, that's what I'll be watching as well. If you have any requests for movies that you want me to watch in the month of February and talk about in my next Letterboxd recap, please leave a comment down below. Let me know your favorite thing that you watched in the month of January. I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.